Not everything you're about to hear will feel comfortable, but it will feel true. And sometimes, truth is the only thing that can change your position. Because being treated like an option is rarely loud. It is quiet. It shows up in delayed replies, in canceled plans, in conversations that feel one-sided. It shows up in effort that is not returned. And over time, you begin to adjust. You give more. You wait longer. You accept less. Not because you want to, but because you don't want to lose the connection. And that is where the shift begins. Not in what they are doing, but in what you are allowing. This is where most people misunderstand the idea of value. They think value is something you prove, something you show, something you explain. But real value is perceived. And perception is shaped by behavior, not words. So instead of trying harder, you move differently. You speak less. You react slower. You observe more. And quietly, everything begins to change. 1. Stop over-explaining yourself. Look closely at moments when you feel uncertain. Notice what you do. You start adding more words. You try to make everything clear. You soften your tone so you are not misunderstood. You explain your reasons, even when no one asked. And it feels like the right thing to do. It feels honest. It feels open. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. You are trying to secure approval. You are trying to avoid rejection. And that subtle energy shifts how people see you. Because people do not measure value by how much you say. They measure it by how grounded you feel. When someone is secure, their words are simple. They don't rush to justify. They don't feel pressure to be fully understood. They say what needs to be said, and they stop. There is space after their words. And that space creates weight. Now notice the opposite. When someone keeps explaining, repeating, clarifying, adding more detail, it creates a sense of uncertainty, even if what they are saying is correct. So the shift is small, but powerful. You begin to trust your first sentence. You stop editing yourself in real time. If you cancel plans, you don't build a long story around it. You say it clearly. If you disagree, you don't soften it until it loses meaning. You say it calmly. If you set a boundary, you don't wrap it in apologies. You let it stand. And something interesting happens. People start listening more closely. Because when words are limited, attention increases. And when attention increases, perceived value rises. It is not about saying less to be mysterious. It is about saying only what is necessary, and standing behind it. That is where authority begins. 2. Delay your availability. There is a quiet pattern that most people don't notice. The more available you are, the less you are valued. Not because availability is wrong, but because constant availability removes tension. And without tension, there is no anticipation. Think about it. If someone knows you will always reply instantly, there is no curiosity, no wondering, no emotional movement. You become predictable. And the human mind slowly disengages from what is predictable. This is not about ignoring people. It is about creating space. Space for your own life. Space for your own priorities. Space that signals, you are not waiting. When you delay your response, even slightly, something shifts. They think about you. They check their phone. They feel a small absence. And absence creates awareness. But this only works when it is real, not forced, not calculated. You are not pretending to be busy. You are actually engaged in your own life. You have things that matter. So when a message comes in, you don't drop everything. You respond when it aligns with your time. When someone asks to meet, you don't say yes instantly. You consider your schedule. You decide, instead of reacting. And this creates a subtle but powerful signal. You are not easily available. You are selectively available. And selective access increases value. Because people begin to feel your time is not guaranteed. And what is not guaranteed becomes more important. 3. Remove the fear of losing people. There is a quiet fear that shapes many decisions. It doesn't always feel obvious, but it is there. In hesitation, in overgiving, in silence when you want to speak. The fear of losing someone. And this fear changes behavior. You tolerate things you normally wouldn't. You ignore signs that feel off. You convince yourself, it's not a big deal. Because the idea of losing the connection feels worse. But here is what happens beneath that fear. You slowly lower your standards. Not all at once, but step by step. Until the version of you that accepts this feels normal. And once that becomes normal, others adjust to it. They give less. They invest less. Because they can feel, you will stay anyway. So the dynamic shifts. You become the one holding on. And they become the one deciding. But something changes when the fear fades. Not completely, but enough. You begin to see clearly. You understand that connection should not cost self-respect. You realize that being alone is not the same as being empty. And you start to detach from outcomes. You no longer try to control whether someone stays. You focus on how they show up. And if what they offer is not aligned, you step back. Quietly. Not to punish, but to protect your position. And this creates a new kind of presence. Calm. Grounded. Unattached. People can feel it. Because when someone is not afraid to lose you, they move differently around you. They become more careful, more aware, more intentional. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy made it clear. You are not here to hold on. You are here to choose. And that is where real value begins. For mirror energy, don't chase it. Most imbalances start small. A message you send first. A plan you initiate. A conversation you carry. And at first, it feels natural. You are just being engaged. You are just showing interest. But when it becomes one-sided, something shifts. And if you continue giving at the same level, you create a pattern where your effort becomes expected, and their lack of effort becomes accepted. This is how chasing begins. Not loudly, but gradually. You start filling in the gaps. You respond faster. You give more energy. You try to keep the connection alive. And without realizing it, you are doing the work for two people. But human behavior adapts quickly. If someone receives consistent effort without giving it, they adjust downward. Because they can. There is no reason to rise, if the connection continues anyway. So the shift is not dramatic. It is subtle. You begin to observe before acting. You notice patterns. You measure energy, not words. And instead of chasing, you match. If they reach out, you engage. If they invest, you respond. If they pull back, you create space. Not as a tactic, but as a reflection. You are no longer trying to maintain the connection alone. You are allowing it to reveal itself. And this does something powerful. It removes pressure. It restores balance. And it exposes truth. Because when you stop overgiving, you see clearly who steps forward and who disappears. And that clarity is valuable. Because it saves your energy and directs it only toward what is mutual. Where effort flows both ways. Where presence is returned. Where you are not an option, but a priority, by design. 5. Master emotional detachment. Emotional attachment is not the problem. Uncontrolled emotional reactions are. Most people don't lose value because they care. They lose value because they react without control. When someone ignores you and you react immediately, you are not just responding. You are revealing urgency. And urgency, when it is not mutual, lowers perceived value. When someone disappoints you and you show it intensely, you are not just expressing emotion. You are handing over emotional control. And control, once given away, is rarely returned easily. You give away leverage in small moments. A fast reply filled with emotion. A long message explaining how you feel. A reaction that comes too quickly to be grounded. These moments seem small, but psychologically, they shape how people measure your stability. Emotion is information. It tells you what matters. It shows you where your attention is invested. But control is power. Because control allows you to choose your response. Instead of being pulled by impulse. Pause before reacting. Not for them. For yourself. Create space between feeling and action. Observe instead of exploding. Watch patterns. Notice behavior. See what is consistent, not what is promised. Respond instead of chasing closure. Closure is often an illusion. People rarely explain themselves clearly. And chasing clarity can make you appear dependent on their validation. Detachment begins when you stop needing immediate answers. When you become comfortable with uncertainty. When you allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you care without losing control. It means your emotions exist, but they do not dictate your behavior. There is a quiet strength in this. A calm presence. A sense that nothing can easily shake you. And people notice that. Because most people are reactive. Most people are driven by impulse. So when you are not, you stand out. And people respect what feels stable. They trust what feels grounded. They invest in what does not collapse under pressure. Emotional detachment is not distance. It is discipline. And discipline is what transforms how others experience you. 6. Build a life that doesn't need validation. When your happiness depends on someone else, you become easy to deprioritize. Not because they are cruel, but because they feel the imbalance. If your mood shifts based on their attention, if your day improves only when they respond, if your energy rises and falls depending on their presence, your center is no longer yours. And people can sense that. Because your world revolves around them. Your time adjusts to them. Your focus narrows around them. Your emotional state mirrors theirs. And slowly, without intention, you place them above yourself. But when your life is full, everything changes. Not loudly, quietly. Goals give you direction. Something to move toward. Something that exists beyond any single person. Hobbies give you presence. Moments where you are fully engaged. Where your attention is not waiting, but living. Growth gives you momentum. A sense that you are evolving. That your identity is expanding. Purpose gives you meaning. A reason to wake up with intention. A reason that is not tied to external approval. When these elements exist in your life, you stop orbiting around others. You become your own center. Something changes in how you move. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are already choosing yourself. And that shift is powerful. Because people feel it without you saying a word. There is less urgency in your actions. Less need in your tone. Less dependency in your presence. You are there because you want to be. Not because you need to be. And that difference is everything. People are drawn to those who are already fulfilled. Because fulfillment feels complete. It feels stable. It feels real. Not those who are waiting to be completed. Because waiting creates pressure, expectation, emotional weight. And most people avoid that instinctively. When your life does not need validation, your presence becomes lighter, stronger, more attractive in a quiet way. And people begin to treat you as someone who adds value, not someone who asks for it. 7. Use strategic silence. Silence is one of the most underrated psychological tools. Because most people are uncomfortable with it. They rush to fill it. They explain too much. They respond too quickly. They speak to avoid being misunderstood. But silence, when used intentionally, creates space. And space creates perception. Not passive silence. Not avoidance. Intentional silence. A choice. A decision to not react immediately. A decision to not explain everything. A decision to let moments breathe. When you don't respond immediately, people think. They replay what they said. They wonder how you interpreted it. They begin to assign meaning. When you don't react emotionally, people wonder. They expect a reaction. When it does not come, it creates curiosity. And curiosity increases attention. When you don't explain everything, people fill in the gaps. And the human mind hates gaps. It seeks closure. It searches for patterns. It creates stories. And often, those stories elevate your importance. Because mystery adds depth. Strategic silence creates mystery. Not confusion. Not manipulation. Just absence of excess. And mystery increases perceived importance. You are not giving everything away at once. You are allowing space for discovery. Not everything needs a response. Some messages do not require energy. Some situations resolve themselves without your input. Not everything deserves your energy. Energy is limited. Where you place it defines your priorities. And people notice where they stand within that. Sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. A delayed response can communicate independence. A lack of reaction can communicate strength. A quiet pause can communicate control. Silence, used correctly, is not emptiness. It is presence without noise. And that presence carries weight. 8. Set boundaries without guilt. People who feel like options often struggle with boundaries. Not because they don't understand them, but because they fear the consequences of setting them. They say yes when they want to say no, because they don't want to disappoint. They tolerate disrespect to keep peace, because conflict feels uncomfortable. They sacrifice comfort to avoid tension, because tension feels risky. But in doing this, they slowly teach others that their limits are flexible, that their time is negotiable, that their needs come last. And this becomes the pattern. But boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They do not push people away. They reveal who is willing to stay with respect. They show people how to treat you, not through explanation, through consistency. Say no calmly, without apology layered in fear, without long justifications. Just a clear decision. Walk away quietly, not to prove a point, but to maintain your standard. Remove access when necessary. Access is earned, not assumed. No anger, because anger signals loss of control. No drama, because drama lowers clarity. No long explanations, because over-explaining invites negotiation. Just clarity, clear actions, clear responses, clear limits. And once people understand your limits, they adjust, or they leave. Those who respect them stay. Those who don't remove themselves. Both outcomes increase your value, because your value is not based on how many people stay. It is based on how well you are treated. Boundaries protect that. Quietly, consistently, without guilt. 9. Stop rewarding inconsistent behavior. Inconsistent attention creates emotional patterns that are hard to break. One day they care. They show interest. They give attention. Next day they disappear. No explanation. No consistency. Just absence. And when they come back, you welcome them fully. You respond quickly. You give energy. You act as if nothing changed. This feels natural. Because you want connection. Because you value the moments when they show up. But psychologically, this trains them. It teaches them that inconsistency has no consequence. That they can leave and return, without losing access, without losing value in your eyes. And behavior that is rewarded repeats, even when it is minimal, even when it is unstable. Instead, shift the pattern. Quietly, without confrontation. Consistency earns access. Not intensity, not occasional effort. Consistency. Inconsistency loses it. Not through punishment, through absence of reward. If someone disappears, don't act like nothing happened. You don't need to argue. You don't need to question. Just reduce your investment. Match their level. If someone gives minimal effort, don't respond with maximum energy, because that imbalance reinforces the pattern. Energy should be aligned, not forced. Behavior that is not rewarded fades. Slowly, naturally, without conflict. Behavior that is rewarded repeats, and grows stronger over time. Choose wisely, because what you tolerate, what you respond to, what you reward, becomes the standard people follow when they interact with you. And that standard decides whether you are seen as an option, or as a priority. 10. Upgrade your self-perception. The way you see yourself shapes how others see you. This is not motivational language. It is behavioral psychology. It is pattern recognition. And it is always happening, whether you are aware of it or not. If you internally feel replaceable, it leaks. Quietly, subtly, but consistently. In your tone, there is hesitation. A slight softness when you should be firm. And need to be agreeable, even when you disagree. In your posture, you take up less space. You shrink without realizing it. You adjust yourself to fit into other people's comfort. In your decisions, you choose what keeps people around, instead of what keeps your standards intact. And people notice. Not consciously, but instinctively. Human beings are wired to read signals. And when your internal belief says, I might lose them, your external behavior starts asking for permission. Permission to speak. Permission to exist. Permission to matter. But here is where everything shifts. When you genuinely believe, I am valuable, not as a mantra, not as something you repeat, but as something you know, something you embody. I am not easily replaced, because your presence is not common. Your energy is not average. Your standards are not negotiable. I choose who gets access to me. This is where power returns. Not loud power, not aggressive power, quiet power, the kind that does not need validation. Everything changes. You move differently. There is no rush in your actions, no urgency to prove anything. You take your time, because you are not trying to earn your place. You already own it. You speak differently. Your words become fewer, but heavier. You don't fill silence. You let it exist. And that silence starts working for you. You tolerate less. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. You see behavior for what it is. And you respond accordingly. Without overthinking. Without over-explaining. And people respond to that shift. They feel it, even if they cannot explain it. Because confidence is not something you announce. It is something you transmit. Self-perception is not just internal. It is projected. Through micro-behaviors. Through timing. Through what you accept, and what you reject. And the world reflects it back to you. Always. If you see yourself as optional, people will agree. If you see yourself as valuable, people will adjust. Not all of them, but the right ones will. And that is the only group that matters. 11. Limit emotional accessibility early on. Being open is good, but timing matters more than openness. Because emotional access is a form of value. And when something valuable is given too quickly, it loses its weight. Being instantly emotionally available reduces intrigue. Not because vulnerability is wrong, but because depth needs space. When someone knows everything about you too quickly, there is no discovery. Nothing to unfold. Nothing to explore. No curiosity. Because curiosity lives in the unknown. And when there is nothing left to learn, attention fades. No gradual investment. And investment is what builds attachment. Not intensity. Not speed. Investment. High-value connections build slowly. Layer by layer. Moment by moment. There is a rhythm to it. A natural pacing. That allows both people to lean in, step by step. Share selectively. Not everything needs to be said immediately. Not every experience needs to be revealed at once. Some things can wait. Reveal over time. Let conversations have depth, but not total exposure. Let there be chapters. Instead of giving the entire story in one sitting, let people earn deeper access. Not through tests. Not through manipulation. Through consistency. Through presence. Through effort. This creates emotional tension. And tension is not negative. It is magnetic. It keeps attention alive. It creates a subtle pull. A desire to know more. And tension builds attraction and respect. Because people value what they gradually understand, not what they instantly receive. You are not hiding. This is important. You are not playing a role. You are not pretending to be distant. You are pacing. You are allowing connection to grow naturally, without forcing depth, without rushing closeness. And when you do this, something shifts. People lean in more. They ask more questions. They invest more energy. Because access feels earned. And earned access always feels more valuable. 12. Be willing to walk away silently. This is the final shift. And the most powerful one. Because everything before this leads here. Not dramatic exits. No final speeches. No emotional explanations. No need to be understood. Not long messages. Not paragraphs trying to make someone realize your worth. Not emotional speeches. Because when value needs to be explained repeatedly, it is not being recognized. Just quiet withdrawal. Calm. Controlled. Final. When someone repeatedly treats you like an option, you leave. Not impulsively. Not emotionally. But decisively. You recognize the pattern. You accept the reality. And you act accordingly. No explanation needed. Because explanations are often for people who are already not listening. Because your absence becomes the message. Clear. Undeniable. Impossible to ignore. And absence reveals value. in a way that presence sometimes cannot. People often don't realize what they had until it's no longer available, not because they are bad, but because familiarity reduces awareness, and distance restores it. Walking away is not weakness. It is clarity. Seeing things as they are, not as you wish they were. It is self-respect. Choosing yourself, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is quiet, even when no one applauds it. It is the moment you stop negotiating your worth. No more convincing. No more waiting. No more hoping someone will change. Now pause. Look at your life honestly. Where are you being treated like an option? Not occasionally. Consistently. Where are you overgiving? Giving time. Giving attention. Giving energy, without equal return. Where are you waiting to be chosen? Waiting for effort. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for consistency. Because the shift does not happen overnight. There is no sudden transformation. No instant breakthrough. It happens in small decisions. Almost invisible ones. One boundary. Saying no when you would have said yes before. One delayed response. Choosing not to react immediately. One moment of silence. Letting space exist, instead of filling it. One choice to walk away, even when part of you wants to stay. And slowly, something begins to change. Your energy changes. It becomes calmer. Less reactive. More grounded. Your presence changes. It becomes stronger. Without becoming louder. Without becoming aggressive. Your value becomes undeniable. Not because you say it, but because you live it. You stop chasing attention. You stop trying to be seen. You stop trying to prove anything. You start attracting respect. Naturally. Without force. Without performance. And the people who once saw you as optional, either step up or step out. Both are wins. Because your goal is not to be liked by everyone. That is impossible. And exhausting. Your goal is to be valued by the right people. The ones who recognize consistency. The ones who respect boundaries. The ones who match effort, without being asked. Remember this. People don't prioritize what feels guaranteed. They prioritize what feels valuable. What feels intentional. What feels limited. So don't try to be everything. To everyone. At all times. Don't try to be always available. Always ready. Always accommodating. Don't try to prove your worth. Because real value does not beg to be seen. It is felt. Instead, become someone whose presence is felt, even in absence. Someone who does not need to chase. Someone who does not need to convince. Someone who simply is. And once you reach that point, quietly, naturally, without announcement, you will never be treated like an option again.